proceed ahead. Let me just put it on the screen for a minute. Please take your time, finish it off, and let me know in case you have any questions related to this. Okay. And once you're done, we'll see what is the overall net cash flow during this particular year so that we can use it to combine it with cash, which will give us the closing cash balance to take in. Right? So take your time, work on it, and then we'll move ahead. For any questions, please let me know over the chat window. So Arun, to your point, you have a question that related to the taxation part. How do we basically account for it? So what happens is if there is any tax-related component that you see in the balance sheet, it would definitely be part of your working capital, either appearing in the current asset side or the current liability side, depending on whether it is deferred tax asset, deferred tax liability, or any other provision for tax or advance tax being shown there. All of those would be captured in the same way that you see right now. So all the changes in the working capital have to be captured like that, right? So you have the accounts payable accrued liability. Similarly, you would have deferred tax liability, deferred tax asset being captured out here. All of that would be captured with the delta, which that indicates what portion of that is a cash and what is non-cash. So this is how you adjust for those tax components here, because the tax figure that we take in the P&L after which we compute the profit after tax, that tax figure is more for the book accounting. So in reality, we may have paid some cash in the form of tax, which is advanced, but we haven't accounted for it right now, so it needs to be captured out. So that's how it is going to be captured.
So, is it to be disclosed separately? How?
Which one?
I mean, all these tax related things, they have to be disclosed separately from accounts payable, liabilities, or current assets.
No, there's no need to actually show it separately. The point is that it is definitely part of the working capital, so you can keep on adding more and more lines over here, show the changes in the tax. So don't club everything together. I wouldn't say that take the overall current assets and overall current liabilities and combine everything in one single line. But you could put that heading, and then right now I've got 6 items. You could have 7 items, 8 items as well. Add that additional line and present it accordingly.
Thank you.
So, Riddhi, to your point that see, somebody asked this question that could we start from EBITDA? Now, the same point, could we start from PBT? You can do all of that. The thing is that if you're starting from a different line, please make sure that you cover it in totality. Right. So, this is how we cover that particular problem. Swayan, the thing is that let me put it this way: anything that you see in the P&L, you're going to start with PAT figure, right? Profit after tax. And if there is any item in the form of any indirect tax receivable, which is probably the credit needs to be taken, and that's still there, and you've paid it, so that delta would also get captured in the working capital. Because what happens is that sometimes there is some sort of a GST receivable component, the credit of which is yet to be taken, which means that we have paid cash right now, but we haven't got the credit for it, which we will get at a later stage. Right now, it has meant some sort of a cash outflow. So it could be reflected out here in this block. So to put everything in simple terms, we start with PAT. This is how we put the presentation properly. And then whatever items you see in the working capital component, take the changes in those items out here. Right? Okay.
So, Amandeep, I have one question related to the tax components. Okay. So there are there is a deferred tax asset or the liability in the balance sheet, and there is also a tax component in the P&L. So how should we do it? I mean, can we do it in this way? I mean, the delta will be there in terms of deferred tax asset in cash flow, and the last year is been paid out. That will be cash outflow, and we can add it. Okay, but that will also be in delta. Sorry, thank you.
What you're saying is
Uh,
actually the same point, which I
yeah.
so
That's
you begin
yeah.
with
Sorry.
PAT. No problem, that's fine. So you begin with PAT, that's after tax as per the book accounting, and any differences between the tax that you've actually paid in cash versus the tax which is being shown in the P&L, that delta is something which is reflected in balance sheet. The moment you account for changes in working capital, it will automatically reflect the exact cash figure that you have. So I would say that we don't even think, we don't even need to think about it, because once we understand the logic, we follow it straight, right? So start with the PAT from a presentation standpoint, and then include the adjustment on account of the changes. So we have got all the items now. It's the time that we can club everything together at the bottom.
We'll.
Can I request all of you to please keep yourself on mute? Those who are done. Thank you. Okay, let's come back here. Now we have got all the items in the cash flow statement. So let's take the sum of all of that and see the final cash flow from cash flow that we have generated in a particular period. So it's there in row number 18, comma, row number 24, comma, row number 34. So we're going to be taking all of these three items, and then that gives us the overall cash flow that we've generated in this particular year, in each of these particular years. So what we have to do, how we use it, is basically the opening balance of cash at any point in time is going to be equal to the closing balance of cash of the previous year. Just a humble request to everyone, please keep yourself on mute. Would unmute yourself and prefer to use the chat window for asking questions. Thank you. Now, the opening, what I was saying, that in the cash balance, we've got the opening balance to begin with, which is going to be equal to the closing balance of the previous year. So I will make it equal to the closing balance of previous year like this. And then what I would say that in this year, there is a cash flow of 99, which we have seen over here. So this year, we started off with 41. We generated a cash of 99. So on a net basis, we are closing with 140, which you can drag on the right hand side to be able to see the cash position. What I've done, you see, we took the opening balance equal to the closing balance of the previous year. Then we are adding the net cash flow generated during a particular year out here to the opening balance, which gives us the closing balance at the end of each year. So this is what we've got. And if you see, we've got these figures in the row number 41, which we are going to flow over here. So you see the last 3 years, it was 41, 140, and 169. So we have just computed 140 and 169. So we have prepared the cash flow statement properly. At least this is one quick check. And now what we can do, we can pull these values and put it across in the balance sheet. So if you see here in the balance sheet, I've got the cash position and the overdraft. So what is going to happen that from the cash flow statement, these five figures that you see, let me put that in a separate color. These five figures that you see, I'm going to put that the closing cash balance will flow to number one, either the cash in asset sides in balance sheet, or it will flow to the overdraft in liabilities side in balance sheet. Now see how you're going to use it. When you model it, you will have to model it this way, that if it is a positive number, it's an indication that we've got a cash balance in our bank account. So it's going to flow over there in the cash and the bank balance line in the asset side. If I visually look at it, I can make out that all of these are positive. So definitely it has to flow over there. But obviously, when you write the formula, you have to think from a perspective that should there be any changes in the assumptions in the current financial model, there could be a possibility that any of these cash balance values might undergo a change. So what we need to see, if it was negative, then there are multiple possibilities. Possibility number one, you go back and raise some equity, right? So that it becomes positive. Option number two, you go back and raise some sort of a secured loan, right? That's another part, or unsecured. Third option is you take it as an overdraft, which is more like a temporary loan that you have taken from the bank. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to treat it this way, that if it is negative, I will show it in the overdraft, compute interest expense and club it. But if you would like to opt for any other option, you can always go back to the assumptions tab and make changes over there. And this overdraft, which is more going to be a negative cash figure from the cash flow statement, would automatically reduce or become zero if you are taking the same amount from some other line item. So I'm going to put it with the help of a formula to say that if, let's first talk about the cash balance. So if positive means greater than zero, then take it, else ignore it. That's what we do for cash. If it is positive, I take it. If it is negative, I would ignore it. I'll take it as zero. Because a negative number need not be taken in the cash line. A cash figure cannot be negative. So let's go to the balance sheet and put the formula. Statement figure 232 is positive, meaning greater than zero, then you take it, otherwise you make it zero. So the formula that I put over here is, which is that if the CFS H41 is greater than zero, indicating a positive scenario, then I'm going to take that H41, otherwise I'm going to make it zero. Does that make sense? So now is the time that I can see that all of these values are positive. So those values have got populated in the cash line. I'm also going to put a formula in the overdraft. I know as a matter of fact that all of those values are zero. There's no overdraft. Still, it is important that you need to complete the model so that if there is any change at a later stage, it should be reflected in the overdraft line automatically. But I know there's nothing, so that's why you see in the balance sheet check line at the bottom, you see all of these are true values now, which means that both the sides of the balance sheet are now matching, and I am good to use this financial model, because there is no accounting error for that matter. The way we use the double accounting principle in accounting, we've kind of followed it well. There could be some other errors which are not coming to our light right now because of some sort of compensatory issue, but at least prima facie it appears that there is no problem in the financial model, because the balance sheet is telling. That's a litmus test that yes, the double accounting system has been followed properly in our financial model. That's why it is working well. Right? So after you are done with this formula, what we need to do, we need to write a similar formula for the overdraft line. What we do in the overdraft line, we will put this logic, which is going to be slightly different to say that the logic for cash was this, but for the overdraft, it's going to be the reverse. Say that if cash flow statement number is negative, then take it as ignore it. Right? Now let us assume, I'm just hard coding this figure for explaining this concept. I'm going to change it again. Let's say this is minus 100, right? What I need to do, if this is minus 100, then this condition is satisfied that yes, there is an overdraft. You need to take it. Now the question to you is that if it is positive, I don't take it. If it is negative, then I take it. But what number do I take? Do I take 100 or I take as it is minus 100? That is the question. So if I go back to the balance sheet and over here in the overdraft line, I want to say that if the cash flow statement number is less than 0, then I have to take it, but take it as 100 figure, not as minus 100. Because you see in the balance sheet, what we're taking all the liabilities values as a positive number. So why would I show the overdraft number as negative? Because it's a liability side. Minus sign over there in the CFS is just an indication that it's an overdraft. It's a current liability. But I don't have to take that. So I'm going to put a minus and then take this figure from here. And otherwise I will say 0. Because it's an indication that if it is going to be negative, yes, I take it, the condition has been fulfilled. However, this minus 100 needs to be shown as a plus 100. So you need to put a minus in front of that 100 figure so that it can eliminate that negative sign from here and show only the absolute 100 value. And obviously, if it is not negative, then I don't show it. Right now, the formula is this, and this is how it's going to show the 100 figure over here. Obviously, this 100 is a hard-coded value out there, which I'm going to remove, but just wanted to show you that this is how you could include a formula over here for capturing the result. Right? So let me just go back and reinstate the original formula that we had here, which was positive, and see how it is working. All of the overdraft figures have become 0 and the cash position is being shown up. So that formally completes the balance sheet for us. That we have now got the values of the cash from the cash flow statement flowing appropriately in the balance sheet line. Right? So let me just show you the formula on the screen and we can take a 10 minutes break and be back to proceed further with the next file. So I'll just hide these rows so that you can see both the formula at the same time. So Abhinandan, I'm going to talk about that interest component in the next sheet. So the next file is all about that, right? If it is an overdraft, there would be an interest expense. If it is a cash balance, I'm going to talk about the interest income. So we'll see that in the next sheet. So let's take a break for 10 minutes and be back at 11:45 and then we'll move on to the next file. In the meanwhile, I've shown on the screen what is the formula for the overdraft and what is the formula for cash. You can use it to complete your file and then we'll assemble back at 11:45. Thank you. Before I move on to the next part, please let me know in case you have any questions. Kiran, I read your note that you are getting an error in the closing cash balance. So, is it an error or an incorrect result that you're getting? So, can you please explain that a bit? If it is an error or some sort of different number that you're getting, incorrect result. Okay. Let me come back to the cash flow statement. And can you just compare each and every head once that which number is different? Let me just reduce the, yeah, I think now it's visible. So can you please see which number is not matching? This should help you. On the left hand side, you've got the formula which I've written in the 2017 year column. Use that as a basis to check your formula. And then let me know in case there is any error still after this. I'm just rolling this window a little bit up so that you can look at the, okay, you got the mistake. Fair enough. All right, so I think we are done with this cash statement. Let's move on to the next part, which is basically to address the point raised by one of the participants as to what we do on the interest expense part on the overdraft number that we might have in this sheet. If there is an overdraft, definitely it is going to attract some sort of an interest, and at the same time, if like 232, 205, this would generate some sort of interest income for us. So how do we compute interest income on cash? Interest income on cash. We compute the interest expense on overdraft. Right? So we will do this computation now in the next file that we discussed out here. So please open file number 8 and we will discuss this point over. Please open file number 8.